him not as God. They became vain. That means self-centered in their imagination. They professed themselves to be wise. They became fools. God brought them down to idols and beasts, and God gave them up. Slippery slope happens to civilizations, happens to nations, happens to individuals. Can happen to you, okay? Now, the Bible says the fool has said in his heart there is no God. Wayne Strickland picked out his tombstone, calls himself an atheist. Well, the Bible says the fool has said in his heart there is no God. I like Ray Comfort's book. His crew is video on here tonight. God doesn't believe in atheists. I don't either. Question, my closing. I didn't leave my gorgeous wife and travel out here because I want to beat somebody in a debate. I want to see somebody get converted, okay? All of you are going to die. If you die, where are you going? You ought to think about it because you're going to be dead for a really long time. I don't care how long you live, you're going to be dead longer than that. So it's real simple. God made this world. He owns it. He makes the rules. We are guilty of breaking his rules. If you don't like his rules and you're going to deny he exists for that reason, okay, but you're going to face him anyway. He told us clearly, thou shalt not bear false witness. Don't lie. All of us have lied. He told us, don't steal. We've all stolen. We're guilty, folks. The Bible says God is angry with the wicked every day. I don't do this, travel around and speak at universities and seminars and stuff because I'm in it for the money or in it because I like being gone. Folks, there's a war going on. Some of you kids are being taught things in this university that simply are lies. Somebody's trying to brainwash you against the obvious. There's a creator. There's a designer. So if you died today, where would you go? You're going to be dead. If you're not saved, you're going to be punished. Or Jesus can take your place. 35 years ago, I asked the Lord to forgive my sin, take my place. And I'm going to heaven. It's not because I'm good. It's because I'm forgiven. You can have the same thing. That's why I came. Thank you so much.
First question is for Dr. Shermer. How did life originate? What is your best explanation? And do you believe life originated from non-life? And if so, why?
Right. An entire chemistry class in, how much do I get, 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
Okay. First of all, origins of life questions are not evolution. Evolution is a theory that deals with how life changes when it already exists. The origins of life is really a chemical question. It has to do with chemistry, not biology. But that aside, we have some reasonably good theories, although they need a lot more work because this is a fairly new science of how inorganic molecules become organic molecules. There's a very fine model right now that has a lot of support that clay substrates at the bottom of oceans may serve as nice mediums for which simple molecules can bind and be held in their bindings into more complex molecules, and how even protein chains can be formed and crude cells can be formed, and so on. That's how you get started in the process. So it's a very gradual, slow process. We know that it can be done just by the input of energy, either ultraviolet radiation or a spark of electricity, these sorts of things. These experiments are rather crude. No, there's not a little creature crawling out of the test tube, of course, but there are at least these early rudiments of life, the beginnings of it, these basic structures, protein chain structures, monomers become polymers. All this happens just by the input of energy. It doesn't require a top-down designer. In fact, it's a bottom-up process that's just built into the laws of nature.
Okay, Dr. Hovind?
I think the complexity of life is so great that there just simply had to be a designer. It's not possible to happen piece by piece. All the experiments so far in the laboratory to try to produce life, Miller, Oprin, Urey, have really made the problem more complex. In this picture here, they show they're using methane, ammonia, water vapor, and hydrogen. Notice they exclude oxygen. They call it a reducing atmosphere because they know if there's any oxygen, it'll oxidize whatever tries to get together. All they've been able to do so far is get a few little amino acids, which is kind of like getting a few letters of the alphabet by randomly dropping toothpicks, okay? That can happen, I agree. You could drop toothpicks and make letters of the alphabet, but that would not explain how you get an entire book. And the difference from a few amino acids to one living cell is like the difference between a few letters of the alphabet and a whole book. It's just orders of magnitude. Now, if he wants to believe that, he can believe that, but again, he's left science and gone to religion. And if he says evolution only deals with after life is here, then he doesn't have a coherent theory because he needs to have something all the way back to the beginning, in my opinion. So that was it already? Watch my video number 4 on the table back there for more on that.
Okay, question for Dr. Hovind. What is your strongest piece of evidence for creation?
I think the evidence for creation would be the absolute impossibility of the contrary. If we were walking down the highway or walking down the road and we saw a swimming pool in somebody's backyard and you can see the waves splashing out the top a little bit, and I said, I think that pool only has water in the top foot, the rest is air underneath. Without even going to examine it, the other person would say, that's silly. It's impossible that there not be water all the way to the bottom. That's the nature of things. Okay? It is impossible that there not be a designer. Everything is just so incredibly complex, there had to be a creator. If you're walking through the woods and you find a painting hanging on a tree, you automatically conclude there was a painter. Even if you don't see any footprints, you don't see the person who made it, there had to be a painter. If you're walking through the woods and you find a building, you don't see any footprints, you don't see any people, you still conclude there was a builder. And if you see a creation, you conclude there was a creator. So I think two things. I would say the design in nature is impossible to explain without a designer. And the idea of creation is true because of the impossibility of the contrary. It is impossible that there not be a creator for something like this.
Rebuttal?
Yeah, I think that says it all. It gets right back to my first slide. I think you should be more explicit here in step 2. Then a miracle occurs. Kent Hovind's answer to what's the best piece of evidence you have for the creation is the impossibility of the contrary. So all he's got is, I don't believe your explanation, therefore the default is my explanation. That's not an answer. That doesn't say anything. That's not any positive evidence in support of a position.
Okay. The first law of thermodynamics says matter and energy is neither created nor destroyed. How do you account for the origin of matter and energy, and is your answer scientific?
That'd be me?
Yes.
Yeah,
2
okay.
minutes.
Oh, I see. We're doing that back and forth thing. Operators are standing by for my tape. Oh, no. Well, this is standard. Doesn't evolution violate the second law of thermodynamics? No, of course it doesn't, because if you have input into a system of energy, such as the sun, then you get a reversal of entropy. That is, you get energy input, you get an increase in complexity and so forth, as long as the energy keeps coming in. Once the energy dissipates, then you get an increase in entropy. So then, okay, but what about the whole universe? And then we're going to end up back at these kind of ultimate questions. Well, then where did the universe come from, and where did the energy that created the Big Bang come from, and so on and so forth. And then we're back into questions that are sort of only quasi-scientific or kind of metaphysical, which we can speculate on, but that isn't really a part of science. We, with science, have to work on what we have. The second law of thermodynamics, I'm amazed anybody ever brings that up anymore. That's just kind of a non-issue for us anymore.
Okay, I disagree strongly. I think the second law is a very valid argument against evolution. The second law tells us basically everything's falling apart, okay? The Bible teaches that clearly. Everything is waxing old like a garment. Here's Sue at 20. Here she is at 90. Here she is at 3,000, okay? Now, the evolutionists will say you can overcome the second law by adding energy. This is ludicrous. Adding energy is destructive unless there's something to utilize the energy. The Japanese added a whole bunch of energy to Pearl Harbor one day. They didn't organize anything, okay? We returned the favor a few years later and added energy to a couple of their cities and didn't organize a thing for them. Adding energy is destructive unless there's something to use the energy. It's true the sun adds energy to the earth, but it's going to destroy the roof on your house, not build it. The sun's energy is going to destroy your entire house. It's going to destroy the upholstery on your car. It's going to destroy the roof on your car. It's going to destroy the paint job on your car. There's only one thing that can use the sun's energy.